All right, good afternoon, everyone, to our wrap session for the year two, semester two. And this will be largely guided by me, who you guys already know. Devon, should I record it directly to the Zoom or to the no? All right, so we'll continue, right? So I want to welcome you guys to our wrap session for year two, semester two. You guys can hear me. Um, right, guys? So just indicate very quickly in the chat. All right, excellent. So I want to congratulate you guys for coming so far. Before we even get into the session, it's kind of crazy because I just remember teaching most of you guys embryology and histology just the other day, and you guys are pretty much on the brink of beginning, your clinical years, because this is one of your final preclinical semesters, except for year three, semester one. So I believe that I should first congratulate you guys for making it so far. You guys have proven to be a very studious group, very intelligent group of students. And I'm proud of you guys. So as you guys are familiar, I am Xavier, a fourth year medical student, as well as a senior tutor with Hyper Academics Jamaica Limited. And I am joined with Devon, who will be speaking with you pretty soon, and Anya, who will be joining soon, to basically just discuss with you guys in quite possibly an informal manner, allowing you guys to ask questions and giving you guys some tips as to how to approach this semester. So it's a pretty hectic semester, so I'm going to see how best it is that I can break it down to you guys so that you can achieve the result that you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys want to achieve. So Devon.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And I want to echo the sentiments of Xavier to just welcome all of you to, yes, another semester, your second semester, second year, and your fourth semester in medical school overall. But also to welcome you back to Hyper Academics. You know that it is always our pleasure to serve you and to work with you to help you achieve your goal of passing your examinations and ultimately becoming the best doctor that you can be. Um, Again, I want to also congratulate you for making it thus far and for trusting us at Hyper to help you along your journey. Particularly this semester is going to be a challenging one because you have three courses, and yes, it might sound like a little bit, but the gravity of the courses themselves, neuroscience and urogenital system, is such that it can become a lot, and you would realize already, but you are in day three, and you've already, when you look by the end of this week, you would have already I think reached brainstem. It's gonna be going fast paced. So you really have to try to keep up. You have to do your best not to fall behind because the semester is short. When you consider the amount of work that you have to do, but I mean, you've made it to this point. You've made it thus far. And it just means that you have what it takes to get the job done, so just get the job done, and we are right here to help you. So I will come back a little later to talk to you. Yeah, it's only 12 weeks. It's only 12 weeks. I'll just give you one tip for sure, that you would realize: you start with neuroscience 2, and you don't start urogenital until a little later, but don't wait until you've started classes at school to get started on urogenital system, because as I said, it's a lot. But you got this. And yeah, so back to you, Xavier, and I'll come back a little later.
Thank you very much, Devon. And I completely agree with what Devon has to say. This semester is most definitely not about who is the most brilliant student or, I'm the top achiever from whichever high school or been performing excellently in medical school thus far. It's really about who can stick it out to the end and who's disciplined enough to actually get the work done. And I think that is the key message that I need to get across to you guys. Now, as you guys would be quite familiar, and as Devon already highlighted, the year 2, semester 2 courses that you'll be doing are 3 courses. You're doing 2 9-credit courses, and I believe this is the first time that you'll be exposed to a 9-credit course. So you'll be doing Neuroscience 2, a personal favorite, and your Genital System Part 1, which is also 9 credits. You will also be doing a pass or fail course, which is Introduction to Medical Practice 2. Now, something that I need to make very clear, because it's a mistake that students have made over the years. At the end of this semester, you'll be sitting an exam in all 3 of these courses. Students in the past have believed that because you also do a component of the urogenital exam in year 3, semester 1, where it is that you tend to focus more on the obgyn component of urogenital, that there's no exam component at the end of this semester. That is completely false, and I have seen students fall behind because they end up failing the first portion of the urogenital system course. And that's not something you'd want to happen, especially when it is under your control. So you will be sitting an exam for your urogenital system at the end of this semester. In my time, and it probably still exists for you guys, you can double check. It was this paper, well, both components, that being the spotter and the long paper, are worth 85% of your final grade. You will, however, at the end of this semester, receive 2 grades. You will receive really and truly 1 grade, but yeah, you receive 1 primary grade, and that would be your Neuroscience 2 grade, because you would have completed Neuroscience 2 at the end of year 2, semester 2. You have an IMP component in year 3 as well, and upon completion of that component, you'll get your final IMP grade. So the point is, study for what it is that they've taught you this semester, because you have exams in all of these courses. Does everybody understand that? Can you guys quickly indicate? Excellent. So you do have exams. Right, so you guys saying understood. Excellent. Now, I'm pretty sure, and you guys should really familiarize yourself with your schedule. You'd realize, as Devon rightly said, that this is a very fast-paced semester, which is why it is that I highlighted that, it's not really about, if you're smart, that's excellent, that's good. But if it is that you're disciplined, you can do extremely well in these courses. You'd realize that neuroscience is pretty heavy this week. You're moving right up to right before brainstem. You actually start brainstem next week. And I believe that by the 4th week, you will actually begin the urogenital course. My approach to this semester was actually an excellent approach. And as Devon said, don't wait until urogenital has started before it is that you actually touch on urogenital. Now, I had actually pre-planned for this semester, kind of, like the night before the semester actually started. Because I saw 9 credits and I was like, this is not something I really want to give up. And just some personal information about me, I wasn't really a fan of Neuroscience 1. I did well in Neuroscience 1, but it wasn't something that I particularly liked. I thought neuroscience was like stuff that people lie to themselves about. Saying, I want to be a neurosurgeon. So I like this. You get me? So I had a plan to say, I don't really like this course already from the beginning. And therefore, I need to come up with a plan, because this is going to be the hardest semester of my life, which turned out to be quite false. So I sat down the night before and I typed out an Excel sheet, which essentially was based on the timetable that they provided for us, which I will give you guys access to this Excel sheet and you can edit it. It will be posted on the Hyper community, and most of you guys are already part of the Hyper community. So you can just go on the community website and download it and make whatever edits you want to and highlight whatever you want to highlight. But the point really was that I created this Excel sheet where it is that I also divided topics based on their own subdivisions. Now, quite obviously, these courses are 9 credits, and therefore I couldn't put the entire screenshot of the entire courses on the slides, but I basically gave you guys a snippet. But you could see where it is that I divided it based on anatomy, histology, and embryology. Why? Because anatomy, histology, and embryology tend to go hand in hand, right? Then there was a physiology section, a pathology section, a pharmacology section, and a medicine/surgery section. And with that, I did that for neuroscience and urogenital. IMP was just a list of the topics that we're covering either way. And with that, I created a plan. Now, I'm going to speak on neuroscience first and then urogenital. Neuroscience is a course that you have to grasp from day one. I don't expect you to grasp all of it on day one, but it is something that you must grasp from day one or get good control of from day one. Why? And this is why it is that I like neuroscience. Everything is interconnected. Therefore, you cannot be weak in descending tracts or weak in ascending tracts and expect to completely understand brainstem or cerebrum or cerebellum. You cannot be skipping parts. You cannot be skipping from here to here. Say, all right, I will study cerebellum today, and then I'm going to study the diencephalon another day. That's most definitely not how it is that this works. Everything follows a particular order. And I find that neuroscience, especially how it is that the syllabus is set up or the schedule is set up, is that it facilitates that to some extent, So this means that you need to get the work done from early. So as it says there, it's high intensity, but it's pretty fun. When it is, and I might be a bit biased because again, I love neuroscience, but when it is that you actually get into the content of neuroscience, you will understand what it is that I'm saying. Now, something that I would advise is that before your lectures, you try your best to pre-read passively. Now, when I say pre-read, it doesn't mean that you're going to open up your book and try to study everything out of the book so that you go to the lecture and try to impress your lecturer. The whole point of pre-reading passively is to get an idea as to what it is that the lecturer is going to discuss. That can involve previous year PowerPoints that you guys probably have access to. It could involve hyper videos that we'll discuss about. It could involve any random video, preferably hyper videos though, but because those are the most concise. But it could just be you sitting down and listening to someone or just passively reading about the topic. They don't have to completely understand and be able to recite the entire content, but you should be able to sit down and understand what is going to be discussed on the next day. Another thing I would advise is also studying ahead. So yes, you're going to be pre-reading passively for content that you're going to be probably discussing the next day with the lecturer. But given how high intensity the semester is, you also don't want to be always just pre-reading, and then not actually retaining content. So as I said before, the urogenital course starts in about week 4. So while it is that you're pre-reading for neuroscience and catching some of the concepts and, cementing some of the content, you can say, all right, today I'm going to read up on the kidneys, which is the first topic, kidneys and posterior abdominal wall, which is the first topic for urogenital in any case. Just one random day, say, all right, I'm going to start doing that. Another day you can say, okay, I'm going to start looking at, tubular function or the physiology of the glomerulus or the tubules. So what you're doing is that you ensure that you prepare for classes, but you're also ensuring that content that you need to cover is actually also being covered. Does everybody understand the difference between the two? Yes, no?
Say it one more time, please.
Right. So what I'm saying is that the whole point is, and it's a habit that I had to break myself out of, even now. Going to a lecture, especially with how it is that you guys schedule is kind of set up. You have classes starting from 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, going right down to 2 o'clock. You guys don't tend to focus past 15 minutes if it is that you guys are lost. You're lucky if you make it even to 5 minutes, at least for me, right? I lose attention really quickly if I don't know what you're talking about. So pre-reading is a way in which you can actually circumvent this issue, right? So you pre-read, but you pre-read passively, because the bad habit that students have is that they pre-read, but they try to pre-read to retain content so that they don't have to revisit the topic. Pre-reading does not have to be high intensity. It could involve, oh, tomorrow I'm going to be covering cerebellum and nociceptors. Therefore, I am going to see if it is that I can find a hyper video, or I can find a previous lecture, or I can find a chapter and see if it is that I can read this and see how much I can grab. So that when you actually go to the lecture, you're more inclined to say, oh yeah, I remember reading that, or that's interesting, or they never included that, so I need to make note of that. So that's pre-reading passively. Reading up a topic passively shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes, to be honest. Because again, you're not studying, you're reading it to understand it. You look up this and say, oh, that's that. So you understand it. You haven't studied it completely yet, but you've understood it. So that when you go to the lecture, this is the second time that you're hearing it. And then after that, it's third, fourth, fifth time that you're hearing it. However, with that in mind, you are also actively studying. You're actively studying whether the previous content, because you could be pre-reading every day, but actively studying content from the week before, if you guys get me. Or you could be actively studying content that you expect to be coming up that you just want to study ahead. So that's what I mean by differentiating pre-reading passively from actively studying, whether ahead or previously. Does everybody understand that? Or see how it is that they could benefit from something like that? Excellent. No,
Devon,
go ahead.
so you mentioned, I understand what you're saying, but you mentioned starting UG before we actually start classes. How soon before UG starts? Is there like a specific time, like maybe 2 weeks or so?
Right, so that really and truly would be student dependent, but personally, I knew that. So I know you guys personally, and you guys are like, oh, he's good at anatomy. I never really came overnight, right? I didn't really become good at anatomy until the end of year 2. The thing is, I knew that my weakest portions of urogenital was or what would take me the longest to prepare for was anatomy and pharmacology. So guess what I did? I started the anatomy and the pharmacology. I mean, I believe by the end of the first week, I had started just watching videos. It was more of a, maybe not so much active studying, but it was me preparing for or familiarizing myself with the content, so that when it actually came closer to beginning urogenital, I already had some scribbled notes to pre-read for the class the day before. You get me?
Yeah.
So it's really about when it is that, right? So it's really about when it is that you're comfortable starting. But I always advise, if you're going to pre-read for another course because it starts later in the semester, pre-read the portions that you're actually weak in. And for most students, that tends to be anatomy and pharmacology. Very rarely is it physiology or pathology, right? So that's my advice for structuring yourself. Of course, have fun whenever it is that you can have fun, but understand that it can be fun in studying sometimes. Yeah, kind of. But anyways, so the next thing, as I said before, is making connections. Neuroscience is all about making connections. You guys started with, I believe, meninges today or something like that. And I think embryology. And then you guys have ascending tracks, descending tracks, spinal cord, brainstem, cerebrum. So you realize that you're actually ascending up the central nervous system tree. So you need to have a good grasp of what's happening with your tracks. Now, your tracks are almost like the backbone of neuroscience too. You need to have a good grasp of your ascending tracks, your descending tracks before you progress through brainstem. Because the same tracks that are within your spinal cord pass up into your brainstem. The same tracks that pass up through your brainstem and do them foolishness is the same tracks that pass through the diencephalon. The same tracks and everything that passes through the diencephalon are going to be passing up into the cerebrum, passing into the cerebellum, affecting the limbic system, all of that. Now, so it's important to make connections. The next point I'm going to make is applicable to both neuroscience 2 and urogenital system. You guys need to start pairing topics or coupling topics. Now, the bad habit that students have, and I've always said it, I'm not going to blame anyone, but you guys tend to follow the syllabus or the schedule, sorry, where you say, all right, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, these are the topics that we did. Another element of pre-reading or actively studying ahead is actually coupling topics. Now, when I had started urogenital, again, you guys know that you're going to be starting with the anatomy, posterior abdominal wall, kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, urethra, right? And you're going to be starting with the anatomy. Now, a huge element of the urinary system is the physiology and the pathology. You guys know that. So when it is that you're studying kidneys, the anatomy on the kidneys, you can already move on to understanding the physiology of the kidneys, So you understand the glomerular function, you understand the tubular function. From there, you can already jump ahead and understand the histology of the kidney. You can jump ahead again, understand pathologies associated with the kidneys, UTIs, pyelonephritis, glomerular diseases, tubular interstitial diseases. You jump ahead, you study the pharmacology associated with the kidneys, which would be diuretics, while it is that you're still pre-reading for whatever other lecture that you have coming up in the other days. Because what you realize, is that, and psychologically, when it is that you pre-read, when it is that you try to actively study ahead of the class, sometimes you can actually feel as if you're actually falling behind. But in truth, when it is that you reach those topics within the subsequent weeks, you realize that you've actually been covering ground. So which is why it is, as I said, the Excel sheet that I had here was actually excellent, because once it is that I had covered, say for example, the kidneys right here, I had jumped down, and of course, physiology tends to be covered after you've covered all of this embryology and anatomy. I just jumped down and covered renal physiology, glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, tubular excretion, all of this, and then I jumped down to the pathology and all of that. So essentially what ended up happening that I was a kidney specialist by the next week. And then I moved to the ureters. Ureters don't really have that much pathology, just some histology associated with it. Jump down to urinary bladder. So I ensured that every time I did a topic, I understood from the embryology all the way down to the pathology and how I treat that pathology with the pharmacology. So you realize that you've gotten a complete understanding of that particular organ or organ system. So that's another way you can approach things. At the end of the day, it's always important to talk it out with friends. You guys can have your mini study groups. You can have, and you don't even have to actively meet. If you want to meet, that's good. In my time for neuroscience, remember, I did half of neuroscience and UG online and half of it in person, because that's when the pandemic affected me for mid school. That's when it came in this semester. It could be something as simple as sending your friend a question after it is that you've studied a topic. So I used to, once it is that I had completely studied kidney in the same format that I just sent you guys, just told you guys, I used to just go and dig up for questions that were relevant to kidneys and ensure that I didn't miss anything. And then I could move on to the next portion of the course, right? So does everybody understand? Is anyone confused? Anybody have any questions at this point, or is everything clear? I know it seems like a lot, but it's much simpler than I've made it out to be. All right, cool. Excellent. So the end goal is this, right? It was one of my better, it was a good pre-clin semester for me, because I got the results that I actually wanted. So the point is in including this was to show that it is something that's possible. You guys can probably even do better than me. If you guys want to go for the A+, you can. But I had just included this here to show you guys that it's possible, and the way I went about it actually worked. You don't have to go with the way I went about it, but you can take some of the information, modify it, and apply it to yourself. And all the best for the semester. You guys can ask any questions if you want to. After Devon speaks with you. Devon?
Okay, hi guys. So just before we go into pricing, I want to actually share my screen. I don't think you have to unshare yours.
No, I don't. You just yeah.
Okay, I come in. Dun, dun, dun. No, I think I'm sharing the wrong screen. Yeah, okay guys. So yeah, but before I go into the pricing, I just wanted to just talk with you guys a little about how we are approaching the semester in terms of our products. So as you should know, our three main flagship products that we offer at Hyper Academics is Hyper Videos, Hyper Review Sessions, and the Hyper QBank / Hyper Papers. Now, Xavier and I decided that it's very important for us to stress the following, because this semester is kind of particular. Now, you recognize that for especially neuroscience 2, it is extremely heavy. The topics are long and they're very technical, right? The hyper review sessions, as we always say, is not meant to come and teach you the stuff, but to review by way of questions and clarifying and all this kind of stuff. It therefore means that now than ever before, we're going to need you to watch the hyper videos before you come to the review sessions, because one review session might be covering 2 to 3 topics, and as I said, they are very technical. There are a lot of things to remember. You cannot come to these sessions blank. So if you look here, you'll see that we have all these topics. Xavier did an excellent job in terms of organizing them into categories. And then there are some bonus videos that were done by Dr. Rochelle Smith, who I think by now all of you would know. She was a valedictorian in her year, I think it was 2019, and she is excellent. So we have all these videos that are available for you to purchase, for you to view. And so we want to encourage you to ensure that you get through to them as quickly as possible and ensure that you watch them before the sessions. Similarly, we have all these videos organized into these categories for urogenital system. Now, one of the things that the person who did these videos did is that she made them relatively short, right? So they are very quick and easy to digest. And then what we're going to do is the recordings of the hyper review sessions from last semester. We're actually going to leave them up for you to be able to view, in addition to the sessions that we will be having live. So you have more and more resources. And as Xavier was mentioning about this whole passive thing, you can always put a session on and just listen passively while you wash your dishes or you clean your room. And all of that is available for you. And then we have the hyper QBanks. The questions are there, and for both urogenital system and for neuroscience 2, there are also mixed papers. So there are those that are categorized, and then there are also mixed papers. So just so that you know, and also to know that when you purchase the hyper review, it includes the mid semester crash course. So you know that as of last semester we had a mid semester crash course. Once you purchase the hyper review sessions, you also get access to your to the mid semester crash course, and then as well there is the end of semester crash course, which is not included in the cost of the hyper review. It is separate. But as you would remember, like from last semester, there is a discount, I think, of about 20% just because you're part of us for the semester. And just before I go into the pricing, one last thing to say is that as of this semester, you will not be able to purchase the hyper review sessions separate from the hyper videos. And the reason being is, again, we are just stressing the reality that you cannot come to the review sessions without having first reviewed the topic through the videos. Reference is going to be made directly to the videos in those sessions, and you don't want to come to the sessions not knowing at least at a surface level the topic. So if you want the videos only, you can buy the videos only by themselves. If you want the hyper papers, you can buy the hyper papers by themselves. But once you buy the hyper review sessions, it is going to include the hyper videos, and that is because we believe that we cannot separate them from each other. Okay, Xavier, you can share your screen again for us to just run through the pricing for the student.
Okay, no problem.
All right. So what you will see here is a similar concept as to what we did last semester. Hyper Academics continues to innovate to ensure that we give you the best offerings at the lowest costs available. So you know that you have two courses that we offer, Neuroscience 2 and Neurogenital System. So it's quite simple, as shown up here, that if you want to do the hyper videos only for one course is $22. The rate that we're using for this semester is $157.50. Always know that if you pay in US dollars, it will always be a little cheaper than if you pay in Jamaican dollars, and that is to incentivize your purchase in US. But there's one thing I want to know. Other companies or other businesses that offer tutorial services for you in this semester, their prices for their sessions and so forth may range anywhere from $8,000 to $8,500. But I wanted to just look at the third line from the bottom, the fourth line from the bottom, which is the both courses with the hyper videos and the hyper review sessions only, which is basically kind of tantamount to what everybody else offers, except it doesn't have the hyper sparkle and the hyper value, but that amounts to just about $7,000. And then you know that hyper papers is something that you can find nowhere else. And so you have that as an added benefit. So what we want you to do, we will send it in the group again. But as you know, to access, to make your purchase, you go to hypercommunity.com/shop, and you click on semester on year 2, and you have these options. Remember, different from last semester. If you want the hyper review sessions, you don't have to put the hyper videos only in your cart again, because it will double charge you, and we do not want to double charge you. So with that said, I think that covers pretty much what we want to cover, except one quick announcement, that after this session I'm going to be sending 3 coupons in the group. Now they are special coupons because they are very limited, so they expire tomorrow, and it's on a first come first serve basis. So there's one of the coupons is for 25% off, and only one person can get that. And then there's another coupon for 15% off, and only 2 people can get that. And there's the other of 10% off, and only 3 people can get that. So the first 6 people who grab these coupons, they get these discounts. So that is just again part of hyper giving back. So we'll put the coupons in the group after this session, and yeah, you will have the opportunity to get started. And also, we start with our first session this weekend. It will be a free session this weekend. The videos are already up for that session. We'll put the details in the group later. So we'll see you guys on the weekend again for the first hyper review session for Neuroscience 2 with your boy Xavier. Does anybody have any questions, whether anything that Xavier said or I said?
Question.
Feel comfortable, guys. Go ahead.
A while ago, I saw on the PowerPoint the selection for the courses. Is it that you register for either neuroscience and urogenital separately, or is there a selection to register for both of them simultaneously? Like, is it a package? Is there a package selection?
Right. So thanks for that question. Let me just share my screen. So yes, they are packaged. But when you go to the shop, you add them to your cart separately, and then the discount is gonna automatically come up. So let me just show it to you. And
Oh,
as customer with Hyper, the more you add, the more discounts you get. Right. So you see, I add the neuroscience Hyper review and Hyper videos. It shows here at $30. When you add the Q bank to that, it comes up to $35. Right. So you get $5 off. And when you add the urogenital hyper videos, hyper QBank and the urogenital hyper review and hyper video, everything comes up to $55. And you see that you end up saving as much as 25 US dollars, right? Or the Jamaican equivalent. So whatever you want, you just put them into your cart and you purchase, and the discounts are gonna come up by themselves.
oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, Xavier, I think there's a question in the chat for you. Which textbook and other resources would you recommend for Neuro 2 anatomy? Before
Okay.
Xavier, I would say
Yes.
say one thing though, that when it comes to neuroscience too, the anatomy and the physiology basically go hand in hand, right? So you really don't get the opportunity to say, oh, I don't really like anatomy. Like when you're doing like when you're doing locomotor or the other well the system based courses like recipe and so forth. If you're not good at anatomy, you can say, okay, I'm gonna sacrifice the anatomy and just get all my maximum points in the physiology and pathology and all this kind of stuff. You cannot do that for neuroscience too, because the anatomy and physiology are basically one and the same, right? So yeah, it's kind of difficult to isolate, and especially since you guys are online, I think the thrust really is more so on ensuring that it's more important for you to understand the inability to separate the anatomy from the structure from the function. So,
Right. So I definitely agree. That was a thing where sometimes in pre-reading for the anatomy of neuroscience, you ended up actually covering the physiology and pathology. So for me, the texts that I used were, what are the recommended texts now, Devon? There was what was it, Bars? That was it?
Guyton and
Bars?
Hall, there's Guyton and Hall. There's another one. I saw it was sent in the group. I actually have it on my bookshelf still, because neuroscience 2 was basically, I can safely say, was my favorite preclinical subject. Y'all hear me, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so it's bars, the human nervous system,
Right.
an anatomical viewpoint. That's really good as well. I know there are two physiology textbooks. There's Guyton and then there's something else, but I remember that I think no.
Bars
Guyton,
and snails. Snails.
I
Right,
think
that was it.
Guyton is actually for neuroscience 1. My bad.
Yeah.
Um,
So I used, all right. So in truth, a lot of my studying for neuroscience, which is why I was so happy to make the hyper videos, was actually based on multiple videos that I watched that I felt like I scoured the internet to find. Because I'm a kind of an auditory learner for the most part. So I'll hear something, I'll never forget it. But once it is that I had watched all of those and compiled my notes, I would then go to bars and snails. And I found that the information that I had accumulated wasn't really that much different from what was in bars and snails, to be honest. Because oftentimes the online resources that you find tend to be a bit more comprehensive and put things together in a less compartmentalized manner compared to bars and snails. But out of the two books, I preferred bars. Some of my colleagues preferred snails. But to be honest, don't read both of them. To me, they both covered the same thing. But I wouldn't use those textbooks to pre-read. I'd use them to, once it is that they're easy texts to read, but I would only read them if it is that I am completely comfortable with that topic and I'm just looking for additional, to see if it is that I missed anything, if you get me. But you could use it to pre-read, but neuroscience is something that you have to try and visualize, because you have to remember most of these things are not visible to the naked eye. So it's not about like reading a text. It's about persons drawing it and showing it to you. Right, Devon?
Right, and also there's another book, BRS, Board Review Series, Neuroanatomy. It's very concise. I wouldn't use it as the primary book to study if you get your hands on it, but like it's very good for review because it basically has all the points kind of like in point form, and then it also has some MCQ questions as well. So if you can get your hand on BRS, Neuroanatomy by Douglas Gould, or Gould, Gould. I'll send it in the group. Then yeah. Okay. So guys, if you have no other questions, let me see. There's a
Well, I
one.
definitely would advise you guys, and not even specific to hyper videos, even though, as I said before, they're probably the most comprehensive videos you'd find online. But because I tend to put everything together, but I would really advise that a lot of the pre-reading that you guys do, or the preparation that you guys do, is video-based first, and then you move to text, for the sole reason that you have to be able to visualize some of these things. It's not as simple as saying the esophagus is 20 centimeters, it's divided into 3. No, the tracks are something that you have to actually try your best to visualize how it is that this could possibly move through the spinal cord, up through the brainstem to the cerebrum. So I would advise that you watch something and listen to something first, and then go and read something. For me, at least. All right, any other questions?